as the YouTube playlist for DUG4GOV. So welcome everyone to our DUG4GOV session this January. We had a break in December for the holidays, so happy holidays to everyone and welcome back to our DUG4GOV series. So for everyone who doesn't know me, my name is Teddy Bullockwill. I am a low-code specialist with our Microsoft state and local government team. So I focus on the Power Platform, but our DUG4GOV community stands for Dynamics User Group for Government. And so we cover everything business applications from Dynamics, including customer engagement and finance operations through the Power Platform, which includes Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Pages, and everything you know and love about the Power Platform. So just for everyone's awareness, we are recording the session and the recording will be available later on the Meetup site or on the DUG4GOV YouTube playlist. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Today's session will be driven by Doug Bell on the Microsoft team, and we're presenting two really key resources that should be very helpful to everyone in the community. But before we get started with the content, we did want to review the DUG4GOV content. So I wanted to bring Liz. Liz, are you there to the microphone to go over our DUG4GOV slides? Liz, are you there?
I sure am.
Great.
Hello, everybody. I'm Liz Hallen. As Teddy mentioned, thank you so much for being here. I am with Dynamics User Group, also known as DUG or DUG, not to be confused with our speaker and, and the other DUG that's on the call. We are a free membership and community of people who focus on the Dynamics 365 products, Dynamics GP, as well as the Power Platform. On the next slide, Teddy, if you would move there, we have been around for quite a while, but we have since grown to over 42,000 worldwide members. And we do offer several different programs and services that are all available for free. We have very few programs that there's a little bit of a charge, one being our DynamicsCon live in-person event. But the rest of our programs, if you'll go back just one more, Teddy, sorry. We do offer webinars, which are free for year-round educational content. We have online discussion forums. You're attending one of our DUG meetups, which is the DUG4GOV option. We do have about 43 other groups worldwide that you can also join. Our YouTube channel, as Teddy mentioned, in addition to the DUG4GOV playlist with all the previous recordings of this meetup group, we do have almost 700 videos that are mostly educational in nature on the core Dynamics and Power Platform products. We here just have the mission of serving community and offering free education, training, and networking to all of you. And we do that through a couple of different ways, through our Team Up partner membership. So some of our partners in the area do pay an annual membership fee. That's the only fee, but it gives them a little bit of access to all of you. And so if you're looking for an ISV solution or a partner, this is a great place to go to our Team Up program. But diving in a little bit deeper to probably the thing that people know us best for is our DynamicsCon events. Our in-person annual conference will be coming up in Denver, May 13th through the 16th. And you'll be getting an email notification if you're part of our membership today. You'll get an email tomorrow letting you know that our agenda is final for this event. It was actually published late last night, so you can check it out at live.dynamicscon.com. But we'll be hosting and featuring content that was submitted by community and chosen by a list of volunteers who have really have a great ear to the ground in terms of things that you're all looking for. If you're not able to travel or be at an in-person conference, we do also offer a free virtual option, which is on the next slide, Teddy. DynamicsCon Virtual. This will be our 5th event that we'll be hosting November 13th this year. very much driven by community. So we ask the community, all of you, for example, to submit your session ideas. And then we have the community vote on all of the submissions accepted. And the top voted sessions are the ones that you'll see on the final agenda. And we will be covering, again, all those Dynamics products as well as Power Platform and some cross-product content too. So thank you so much for all being here and contributing community. I will drop in the chat our website where you can sign up for your free membership and learn more about these programs, as well as how you can reach me directly in case you have any questions. Thank you so much, Teddy, and I'll give it back to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Liz, as always, for the partnership with the DUG community leaders. So we really appreciate the platform that you put together for the community and are really looking forward to bringing this group together every month. So just as a reminder, we do meet every month except for December and July when we do go on break. So we just had our holiday break. So welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you're refreshed after the holidays. We do meet every fourth Tuesday of the month at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern, and all the time zones in between. And so today's session will be presented by our Microsoft Technical Specialist, Doug Bell, on two pieces of resources that I mentioned at the top that we feel are getting started with the Power Platform and with Dynamics. So the first is Backlog Avengers, and the second is why Dataverse. These are two pieces of content that we've heard a lot of questions about from the community, so we thought it would be best to have this webinar available for everyone to consume. And in addition to that, we have links for both pieces of content that we'll share out throughout the meeting as well. So if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I have some of my colleagues who are monitoring the chat to answer any questions you may have, and then we'll also reserve about 10 minutes at the end of the presentation to take any comments or questions live from the community. The next virtual meetup in February will be on the 27th of February, and we are scheduling that at the moment. So with the administrative part out of the way, I wanted to invite Doug Bell up to start the presentation on Backlog Avengers. Thanks so much, Doug.
Great, thanks, Eddie. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Doug Bell. I'm a technical specialist, a Power Platform technical specialist on the state and local government team based out of Denver, Colorado. And like Teddy said, it's my privilege today to introduce a couple of resources that myself and others on our team have put together and that we think are useful, and we're hopeful that you will get some benefit out of these yourselves, and then also sharing with other folks around your organizations that you work with or who are curious or otherwise kind of want an intro level, a great way to get introduced to the Power Platform in particular. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I don't have any slides. Well, Teddy's got a couple here, but that's just kind of up to memorialize them. But I'm just going to show you what we have. And these are kind of related resources. The idea here initially was the first one we put together is the Conquer the App Backlog website. Feel free to follow along at home if you like. It's just backlogavenger.com. We kind of put a superhero theme to it. So there we go. We'll just go to backlogavenger.com. As you can see, we kind of put a little bit of a superhero theme to it to try to make it a little bit more engaging, fun, different, memorable. Sometimes technical demos can get a little stale, so we try to have a little fun with it. Hopefully you enjoy aspects of this, but the idea here was to package up a lot of the content that myself and others in my role or similar roles find ourselves frequently delivering to customers. And really the idea was to make it available to you all on demand at your leisure in consumable little packages, and you can bounce around and focus on the topic or topics that you're interested in and really just consume it conveniently and at your leisure. So if if I had to summarize what this website is, this Conquer Your App Backlog with Power Platform website it's really it's a Power Platform briefing in a box, essentially. So we follow, we go beginning to end in terms of introducing folks to Power Platform, starting with why should I care? Why should I care about low code? Why should I care about Power Platform? How are folks in state and local government using Power Platform? How should I expect to get value if I start adopting the platform? So that's really the initial part of this three-part series here. This three-part journey is, are you ready to be a superhero? Let's get you primed. Let's get you ready to go. Let's inspire you to continue with us through this journey. So we have a couple of videos here that were done by the esteemed John Schloman, who is another Power Platform or low code specialist on our team. So we start out with why low code? Why should I care? And then Powerful Transformations is really focused on examples, patterns of value, etc., specifically from state and local government. So again, I want to remind you that this was put together by our state and local government team. So it really is tailored specifically for state and local government customers. Not that it wouldn't be beneficial to folks from other industries, but we definitely take an SLG perspective when we approach why should you care, use cases. When we get into the demo portions, which is the second part in our three-part series here, all of those demonstrations, all of those examples were done in the government community cloud. So we're trying to put ourselves on par with your experiences every step of the way here with this series. So the idea here is to get you all inspired, certainly for folks that are not familiar with Power Platform or curious why would I use Power Platform or any low code application or transformation platform for that matter. This is a great place to start. From here, we move into stage 2, which is where we get to see our superpowers in action. And before I go there, I will just say that this, of course, is my favorite part of the series, not just because we're doing demonstrations in this part, but mainly because we get to meet our superhero. we have devised a persona, the Backlog Avenger, hence the backlogAvenger.com, who is going to help us witness and observe the core superpowers of Power Platform and help us see them in action. So when we jump to stage 2 here, we get to meet the Backlog Avenger. And this is an 8-part series that is mainly demonstrations, or really exclusively demonstrations. And the idea here, the approach that we took is that we picked a use case, right? Like we said, like let's make it meaningful. I don't want to just do a Canvas app demo in a vacuum, for example. So we wanted to take a use case that we were going to follow through from start to finish and exhibit multiple components of the platform, all within the context of this use case. So to tee it up, we kind of meet our villain, our evil backlog item villain. So we take a use case, we tee it up, and kind of like, here's our problem statement, here's our objectives, these are our requirements essentially for the solution that I need to build. And then the Backlog Avenger shows us how he saved the day. He shows us his solution. So we kind of tee up our use case, and then we show the finished product. This is what the Backlog Avenger was able to accomplish using his Power Platform superpowers. Then from there, we kind of back up and we start diving into how Backlog Avenger uses each of those superpowers. So this is where we start looking at individual aspects of the platform. I think we have 6 of these, maybe. Yeah, we have 6 of these that we focus on. We start with Dataverse, then we go into Canvas apps, we go into model-driven apps, we go to Power Automate, we use AI Builder, and then we also use Power Pages. So those were the 6 main components of Power Platform that the Backlog Avenger uses to vanquish the evil backlog item supervillain. There are kind of adjacent technologies that Backlog Avenger uses along the way. We use a little bit of Power BI and things like that, but the main ones we focus on are the 6 that I just mentioned. So in each of these videos, there's 6 superpower videos. The first one is super solid foundation laying. This focuses on Dataverse, focuses on establishing a solid data foundation. So Backlog Avenger will kind of introduce Dataverse or introduce Canvas apps or whatever the main component is. There's a couple quick minutes of slides. And then he gets into showing you how he built the solution component that went into the end-to-end solution demo that starts off this little segment. So all of these videos, by the way, they're anywhere from 8 to 12 minutes. Snackable little components here. I think most of them are right around 10 minutes. So just so you know what you're in for. These are all posted on YouTube as well. So if you want to play them at 1.5 speed or something like that, like go ahead. You can consume them however you like. We've also complemented each one of these videos with related resources. So these might be resources to, like docs pages on our Learn site, or to learning paths, or to related tech series sessions that we've done for each one of these superpowers. We picked a few of what we felt were the best related resources. So if folks want to go deeper into the component that was showcased in a 10-minute fashion, there's some resources that are served up conveniently for them. Let's see. So, a couple things like what this is. Again, I think this is a briefing in a box. This is a great way to introduce someone to Power Platform. So it's primarily intended for folks that are kind of early in their journey, unfamiliar with Power Platform to novice with Power Platform. That said, like certainly in the seed and action segment, or actually in everything, right? Like in all of these videos, there's probably a nugget or two that even folks that have been working with Power Platform for years would learn something new and take something new away. My vision here and the reason for introducing this to you all is, one, to make you all aware. Certainly encourage you all to go explore the website, watch some of these videos, whichever ones are most compelling to you. I think and hope you'll learn something new, or get some new perspective, get some new exposure on something. But also to make you aware of it and introduce this as a resource that you can share with your colleagues. I know from my experience of working with folks that are exploring or adopting with Power Platform, it is frequent that I will have a core group of folks that I'm working with. We're kind of all on the same page. We're all at the same level. It is very typical for new players to come to the table, right? It's either folks that are new to the organization or folks that have a new interest in Power Platform. So, I would fully anticipate that you all, as champions of these tools within your organization, are frequently educating folks on what the tools are and why you've chosen to use them, and then how you choose to use them, or just technically how you use them. So if I think about the role that I play in being an advocate and educating folks on Power Platform, I imagine that you all find yourselves in a similar position fairly routinely, in which case I would certainly encourage you, like, point folks to this resource. From my point of view, this is not a, hey, don't talk to me, go here instead kind of thing. This is a, hey, go here, explore this content, and then let's talk, right? It's the whole idea is just to accelerate someone's education. It's not to punt their education to a set of resources that we've now created. It's really to provide them with something convenient that they can consume at their leisure and establish a solid foundation so that we can have more meaningful conversations down the road. So again, I'm just kind of sharing some perspective on how I and probably other folks on my team think about these tools and how we're utilizing them to help advance and empower customers that we're working with. And my thoughts on how you might be able to use them in a similar fashion. So, anyways, this section, we start with the end-to-end demo. We get into Dataverse. Like I said, we go into Canvas apps. And again, each one of these videos, it's about 10 minutes. And these are mostly building the component that went into the overall solution. So we're building our data model in Dataverse. We're building our Canvas app that we're putting in the hands of our inspectors in the field. We're building our model-driven app for our back office processing. We're building some Power Automates that will orchestrate some approvals or put some structure to our business process flows. We're probably, introducing business process flows. So, what's cool about this is that there's lots of demos of, like seeing something built on Power Platform is one thing, right? But I could build just about anything on Power Platform, and for that matter, I could build just about anything on a dozen other platforms, right? The value here, what we want to get people exposure to and kind of inspire people with is how accessible the maker experience is, how approachable it is, and inspiring people and giving them the confidence that, hey, yeah, you may have never touched Power Platform. You may have never built an application or a database in your life, but you can use these tools. If you want to, if you're inspired to learn, you can use these tools. And that's what this is about. It's not training, it's inspiration, but it could certainly be the first step in a more extended training and education. So then we go into Power Pages and we round out with a little bit of AI Builder. And oh yeah, my mistake, a little fuzzy on this content. We do include a whole session on Power BI as well. So it's not just an adjacent technology. We actually have 7 in this series and round out with Power BI. So again, we're covering all major aspects of Power Platform. And then the last piece here is, all right, you got inspired, you saw it in action, you're ready to go. Like, where do I go next? Like, how do I actually get started with the platform? And here for, net new organizations in particular, we have a little 10-minute primer on administration and governance. This may be of interest to you all as well. We did a tech series session about a year ago on this subject. This is a really condensed version. This is about a 10-minute version of here are the things you must know around administration and governance. And here's a maturity model that we would recommend as your overall adoption of the platform matures. Here's how your administration and governance practices might want to mature as well. There's a nice little session on demystifying Power Platform licensing. Again, just kind of covering the basics, 10-minute primer. And then Dave Terry, who some of you all may remember, who has moved on to bigger and better things from our state and local government team. But he still helps us out, of course. He did a great little segment on additional resources to help you get started. So this would be everything from publicly available on-demand free resources like our Docs Learn sites or workshops, free workshops that are delivered by our partners, to unified support and the resources and workshops and sessions that you all can secure through unified support. So anyways, I think it's a great resource. We've gotten, we just started promoting it a couple of months ago. We've gotten some really good feedback. We've gotten feedback about a couple of things that we could improve, and we've tried to action on those. So if you do check it out and you have feedback, we'd love for you all to share. But yeah, it's a nice end-to-end journey, starting with why should I care? Now let's see the tools in action, and then how do I take the next step? Where do I go from here? So if you all want to explore it yourselves, and absolutely feel free to share with others around your organization that you work with that you think could benefit from this. So let's see, Teddy, are there any questions or any call outs or anything that you want me to address before we move on to the next one?
Great, thanks, Doug. I think we have a couple comments in the chat, but just wanted to thank you again for going over this. For everyone on the call, as you go through some of these videos, you'll notice some friendly faces in the video that may be familiar to you as you start hearing about some of the content here. So hopefully you can kind of get a sense of who our Backlog Avenger is. But thank you for your comments. I actually forgot.
I was going to ask for fun, right? Like, we haven't actually started selling merch yet. I think if there's enough demand, we might be able to start mass producing these masks. Now, I'm not saying I'm the Backlog Avenger. This could just be an authentic replica mask. But yeah, give us some feedback. If there's enough demand, maybe we'll start offering merch.
Absolutely. Thanks so much,
Doug. That picture and you're wearing the mask are just too similar. Yeah, and just to be fully transparent, you did not lose a bet, so
maybe. Anyways, we've said enough on that subject.
Hey,
no
Doug,
identity.
sorry. Yeah, let me add one quick thing there. So a good question from Chris in the chat about closed captioning on the video. I guess when we send it through live send, it may not caption correctly, but if you watch the YouTube content, you can use the YouTube captioning for that. So
yeah, great point. Yeah, that was one piece of feedback we got was ensuring that were adhering to accessibility standards, and our website administrator did acknowledge a couple things that could have been done better on the website itself. That was one. And then just a reminder that, yeah, we are just using YouTube. These are not publicly listed videos, by the way, for whatever that's worth. So you can only get there through Seismic and or our website. But certainly if you go to the YouTube platform to watch the video, you'll be able to get just the YouTube generated captions on this. Good call out, Doug. Thanks.
Yeah, and there was one more just about, will this session be recorded? Yes, so all of the DUG4GOV sessions are recorded. They're placed on the DUG YouTube page, and there is a DUG4GOV playlist. I'll get that link and put it in there as well.
Great. Thanks so much, Doug and Doug. I think those are the questions we had on the Backlog Avengers. So I think the next piece of content that we wanted to present is really kind of diving in a little bit deeper on the platform and exploring why Dataverse is a really great alternative data source to some that you may be familiar with. So this again was created by a member on our technical specialist team and tailored specifically to our state and local government community. So with that, I want to pass it back over to Doug Bell to go over why Dataverse.
Yep, and I think somebody will drop this link in the chat if they haven't already. For this one, we don't have a custom domain, but we do have an aka.ms link. It's aka.ms/why Dataverse, WHY Dataverse. And yeah, this, like Teddy said, a similar motivation behind creating this resource as well. We get a lot of questions on why would I use Dataverse rather than maybe SQL, or maybe rather than SharePoint, or rather than a dozen other different data management tools that I might choose to use. And so yeah, what we did on this site was pick the top 20, maybe. I'm not sure how many little tiles are on here, but pick the top 20 reasons, the top 20 things, components of value, the top 20 questions that folks will typically have about Dataverse and what benefit it offers and why it's a great tool to choose for your data modeling and as your database, rather than a litany of other tools that you would have available. And that you might well choose to use in conjunction with the balance of power platform. And so I'm not going to go through all of this right now. Frankly, I didn't come here to do a pitch on why you should use Dataverse. I'm sure many of you all are familiar with these concepts and have your own feelings on why you might or might not choose to use Dataverse in a particular use case or scenario. But I did just want to make you aware of it, right? Again, so I'm sure that we can all learn something. I've learned a couple things. Just yesterday, I was going through this. I was going through this site more thoroughly just to make sure that I was fully familiar with it to introduce it to you all. And I learned 2 or 3 things. And I've been working with Power Platform and Dataverse for years, right? So I think on this site in particular, it's great to review. There's something for everybody. There's always things that we don't even know we don't know. But we start with, world-class security. I get questions about this all the time, right? So just the basics. We're behind Entra ID, formerly known as Azure Active Directory. We're using that for the authentication layer. We have an in-depth role-based security model that Dataverse delivers natively that you can take and you can configure. You can take that role-based secure model to a very granular level in terms of table and row and field-based security. So we cover off on a lot of the security concepts, and most of these segments, again, it's kind of similar to what we tried to do with the backlog.avenger.com is kind of have an initial blurb on the subject. A lot of these have little videos or GIFs. Sometimes it's a GIF like this. Sometimes it's a full YouTube video down here, as well as links to other resources where you can continue to explore these concepts in more detail. So as you work through and explore this, again, kind of start at a higher level and continue to drill down based on how much of an interest you have in these particular topics. So we start with security, then we go into meeting business needs. We're handling different types of data, obviously, data, files and images, metadata like log data, etc. Making sure that folks appreciate the common data model, including how that common data model extends to custom tables that you might create. Then we get into business logic at the data layer in terms of like business rules or business process flows. All of this, of course, would be accessible via the low code or really no code maker experience. When I need to go to that next level with business logic, then I can get into plugins and start writing database plugins for Dataverse. So we get into how it solves for business needs, in and of itself and in conjunction with the rest of Power Platform. And then we get into, all right, now how do I use it as not an integration hub, but how do I ensure that once my data goes into Dataverse, it's not going into a vacuum? How am I going to, how is that data going to play nice with everything else that is part of my, technology estate? So of course, first and foremost, we don't want to overlook, the natural integration with Power Platform and how, in our opinion, at least, Dataverse is the best data store when I'm using the rest of Power Platform. We talk about data flows and that as a great technique to bring data into and push data out of Dataverse. We talk about an Azure Synapse link if I want to take all my data that's in Dataverse and push it to an Azure Data Lake and kind of take my data out of the SaaS service, if you will, and get it into a data source that I control in the Azure data estate. We talk about how it plays nice with AI Builder and Entra ID again, of course. This concept of elastic tables, which, by the way, I don't think this is actually available in GCC yet, so this is a little bit forward-looking, but this is one of the things that I personally definitely learned about. This whole concept of elastic tables and when I might choose to use those and what kind of high volume dynamic scenarios I might want to use an elastic table. That was all new to me. That's something I learned a little bit about yesterday. How I can create webhooks, have my own kind of custom triggers and things like that off of Dataverse events. Management and scale, right? So just assurances, commentary on how Dataverse is highly performant, highly scalable as a cloud service that runs in Azure. Obviously, you would expect those things, but just kind of information and guidance on those subjects. Auditing in terms of auditing table data. The robust API, the kind of out-of-the-box Dataverse web API, which is another thing that I've learned recently, how important and critical that can be to adopting Dataverse in certain situations. If I have, custom apps, if I want to do some development on Power Platform, but then I have custom apps that also need to be able to make API calls into my data, can I still use Dataverse? Like, absolutely, the answer is yes. And it's probably the best source that I can use because whenever I create a table in Dataverse, it's now naturally accessible and exposed through the Dataverse web API that I can call through any custom coding tool. So certainly for pro devs in the audience that are thinking about the flexibility of the platform and how it's going to interact with other technologies that I have in place, that Dataverse web API becomes extremely valuable. And then just, again, some guidance on promoting healthy development and administration and governance of the platform. So transparency, this gets into the Power Platform Admin Center, maybe gets into like a Center of Excellence toolkit. When we start jumping over to governance, right, we're thinking about things like data loss prevention policies, tenant isolation, a lot of the topics that would have been covered on the Backlog Avengers administration and governance video segments. Application lifecycle management, right? How do I adopt healthy ALM processes? What are the different options that I have available from pipelines to Azure DevOps and beyond? And then just some commentary, as always, about accessibility and how Dataverse and the applications, in particular model-driven apps, Power Pages, websites, etc., built upon Dataverse are complying with WCAG guidelines. And then, of course, it's not just from, we usually think about accessibility from an end user experience, but we also have amazing content on Power Platform being accessible to makers that are using assistive technologies to interact with the maker experience as well. So anyways, again, this is a nice resource that I think everyone can learn a few things from. But most importantly, perhaps if you have folks that you're interacting with that are wondering about Dataverse, that aren't familiar with it, that are questioning the viability of Dataverse for, high scale, mission critical, sensitive data situations, this is a good primer. Again, I would not say that, hey, don't come ask me questions, go here instead. It's kind of like, yeah, that's a great topic for us to discuss. Why don't you go review some of this in advance so that you have a solid foundation coming into our conversations? Again, that's just how I think about using it oftentimes. But wanted to make you all aware of it as a resource that you can pick and choose how you want to use it, whatever makes sense for you. So these are both publicly available. Take them and use them. That's our hope. And if you have feedback, please do let us know. We are desperate for more feedback on these tools. So to the extent that you're willing to share, please do it and know that it will be appreciated.
Yeah, Doug, thanks so much again. And as Doug mentioned, this is a one-stop shop to getting started with the platform. This is by no means kind of the end-all be-all of the information that we have on what the platform is, what Dataverse is, and how to make the best use of it. You'll actually notice that behind a lot of these tiles are links to Microsoft Learn documents, which are updated by Microsoft. So you have the up-to-date information on anything that is available and is coming out at any given time. And so what I would ask of you is, as Doug mentioned, is, if you are interested, please share this, with your teams. Please explore this at your leisure. And then if you do have additional questions, feel free to reach out to your Microsoft account team. That's what we're here for, to kind of help you along the journey of understanding what the platform is, understanding how you can achieve some of the goals of the Backlog Avenger, and really modernize a lot of the applications that you have on a low-code platform. So, with that, wanted to thank Doug again very much for introducing the two resources that our Microsoft technical team has put together for you all. Hopefully, this was a good overview and introduction of what is available. More content, is continually being updated and shared out with tech series and through our DUG4GOV community. And with this, hopefully, you'll take this back to your teams and you can come present at a future DUG4GOV meetup. And so with that, just want to go back to some of the slides that we had. So I'm just going to share my screen here. As mentioned, this will be shared out on the recording of this will be shared out on the YouTube site. So we had our Conquer Your App backlog with the Power Platform, as well as Why Dataverse, with the links to both of those resources that Doug presented. And with that, I wanted to see if there were any questions in the community that we can help answer. I know that there were quite a few already that came through the chat, but if anyone is feeling up for it, please feel free to raise your hand, and I can bring you off of mute so that you can come and ask your questions.
Hey, Teddy, a couple things while people come off of mute if they want to ask a question. So Chris, I apologize. I misread your chat. So you were talking about the tech series content. I think Doug covered it in the chat, but we'll see what we can do on that. I don't know if we can go backwards, unfortunately, but I'll see if there's a transcription available for that content. I was mistakenly referring to the Backlog Avenger content in YouTube. So I'll check and see what we can do. And then I'll talk to the coordinator of that content as well to make sure we caption that going forward. And then secondly, Teddy, if you don't mind, I would love to do a poll of the audience as we get into 24. Obviously, we're starting to set our agenda for the year as much as we possibly can. I put a quick note in there if you would like to present in February or March. We still have those open. And really the benefit of this group, I think, nationwide, obviously it gives Microsoft a few chances to kind of talk about a few things, but we really don't want to be, the presenters each month. We'd really want our customers to tell their stories, because that's where it gives everybody ideas. And so if you have something that you would like to share with DUG4GOV, would love for you to be a presenter. But at the same time, we also kind of want to understand what you're looking for as well. So I'm going to launch a quick poll This is a multi-select poll, so you can check kind of all the things that you might want in there. And then if I didn't include something you're interested in, please feel free to add anything to that poll as well. So hopefully, is everybody seeing the poll, Teddy? I know I'm seeing it.
I'm seeing it. Thank you.
So if you could, please fill it out for what you're interested in seeing, either from our customers or from us as Microsoft that we can share. Obviously, Copilot is a thing that Doug, Teddy, and I spend a lot of time talking to customers about. It's not yet in GCC. It's coming. It is in commercial. Not all of our state and local government customers are in GCC. Some of them are in commercial tenants. And so we're starting to have those conversations, but that will rapidly change as we get into 2024. So, anything that you want to add in as far as stuff that you want to talk about, or just fill out this poll, that would be great.
Thanks so much, Doug, for bringing that. Yes, we get our best ideas from the community. So, this is really for you all, an opportunity to kind of give us feedback about what you would like to see. So as Doug mentioned, there are several platforms in which our team puts together content. DUG4GOV is one, and it is really a place for us to share with the community about what you all have done on the platform. Doug Bell mentioned at the top as well that our tech series is run by our Microsoft technical specialists to give you a little bit of a deeper dive on the technical components kind of behind the platform to really get going. So, if there are presentations that you'd like to see that Doug has shared on the poll, please feel free to let us know, and then we'll make sure that we're providing the right content on the right platform for you all, for the right audience. Thank you. And again, please feel free to raise your hand or type in the chat if you have any questions related to this content. And while we have Doug and some of my colleagues on the call, we can go ahead and try to address them as best as we can on the call, or follow up if that's something that that we can address immediately. So we do.
Yeah, Ted, there was one.
Sorry,
There's one question. Yeah, there's one question. All features not available in GCC for Copilot Studio like earlier PVA. Good question. So I think the way I'm reading that is what's the feature parity between Copilot Studio in commercial and Copilot Studio in PVA? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Obviously, all the Copilot stuff like generative answers, generative actions, the plugins, that hasn't yet made it to GCC. Doug, what am I missing as far as anything that was in PVA that was available in commercial but not GCC? Can you, or if there's a specific feature that you're referencing, analytics. Oh, thank you. Yeah, good question. So that was on the roadmap to get resolved. I'll have to check and see where it is, but yeah, that was a known issue, but I don't have a time frame, unfortunately. I'll see. I don't know, unless you do. I think there were some things the product group is kicking around for a workaround to make that happen. I don't know the latest on that, but I'll try to follow up with this group in the chat on where that is.
Yeah, there's a do-it-yourself workaround for analytics. There's guidance on how you can create your own, at least for PVA, if this is a continuation of Power Virtual Agents, now known as Copilot Studio, and wanting to get analytics on the conversations and chat transcripts and things of that nature. There's a pretty well documented do-it-yourself approach, which obviously is not nearly as appealing as just having those analytics out of the box within Copilot Studio, but that is the workaround for the time being that I'm aware of.
Thanks, Doug.
Okay, and just to I'm watching the chat window. Lawrence, I'm going to come back to your question in a second, but the other thing was about not being able to give the website search within the website. So that is the generative answers capability. That's kind of what it's called. That is not yet in GCC because that's part of Copilot, right? So that will come in as soon as Copilot comes in. that will come in. That generative answers will come in as well. And Doug, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong.
I mean, we say it's part of Copilot. It's really confusing because it feels like everything is part of Copilot at this point. I guess to be more precise, the generative answers, a number of other kind of generative AI based features that are part of Power Virtual Agents and all of our different Copilot experiences, be it end user Copilots or maker Copilots for Power Apps, for Power Automate, etc. Anytime I'm having that kind of Chat GPT style experience that is making something happen for me, all of those features are based on our underlying Azure OpenAI service. The real hang up here is that BizApps GCC, Dynamics GCC, Power Platform GCC, and the Government Community Cloud, those services run in Azure Government. And unless we do something atypical, we can't release those features until the underlying Azure services that are required, i.e. the Azure OpenAI services that bring the Chat GPT and OpenAI models to Azure. We can't really deliver those features until those are available in Azure Government. So we're currently in this pattern of, we were assessing some workarounds there. I'm not sure whether those are going to develop or not, because there seem to be some accelerating timelines for getting the underlying services to Azure Government. Anything more than that would just be speculation, but just to offer some transparency on why there's such a huge collection of very attractive and high-profile features that aren't available in Azure Government. It's not because Microsoft is neglecting our government customers, certainly not deliberately. It's purely some prerequisites that need to be addressed first. And those, of course, are very intensive services to deliver through Azure. It's really like can we actually get the hardware that's required to deliver those large language models in government data centers? I mean, it's fundamental as that to some degree. So that's where we're at, to offer some insight into what the delays are about.
And then I'll kind of add one other thing onto that before we go to the question. There's going to be, so generative answers is going to be kind of a collective set of capabilities to be able to query multiple data sets. So the first kind of implementation we saw that was just publicly available websites, and so that was one. But what you'll start seeing come into GCC when it does come in is what we're seeing in commercial, which is there's multiple data sources. There's the ability to do public websites. There's the ability to do SharePoint repositories. There's the ability to tie it to an Azure OpenAI model. There's the ability to add just data within that data source. And so, as you can imagine, all that is rapidly changing. Even in the preview and commercial. So stay tuned. And that's one of the reasons I think we'll probably do a Copilot Studio session at some point. And we'll, obviously you'll see those in Tech Series as well. But lots happening here on the Copilot Studio front, as well as something that we haven't talked about is Copilot Studio is really going to be one of the front end ways for you to be able to extend even the Microsoft 365 Copilot and some of our Dynamics Copilot. So it's going to be the common kind of maker configuration experience for how to extend other Copilots, not just Power Platform Copilots.
Great. Thanks so much, Doug. So I do see that we have a question or a hand raised. So I'm going to allow the mic, and if you can please come off the mic or unmute yourself and ask your question.
I think this was about that graying option, what I mentioned about generative AI. I think you answered already, saying that it's not available still in the government cloud.
Okay, got it. No, thank you for your question. And
what is the approximate time from when it will be available in the GCC?
I wish we knew. There's a lot of internal talk going around, and Doug kind of alluded to some of the constraints that we have on hardware. So they're actively working on it. We talk about it almost daily. All I can kind of say at this point is soon.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
And one of the things, just on that note, one of the things that you see when you see something grayed out like that, sometimes the product team will put support for something they know that's coming, but then they'll grade out until all of the underlying kind of prerequisites are then available. And so that's why you kind of see that screenshot sometimes is it's just kind of grayed out, but it's kind of some framework work that the product group does to get ready for it.
Got it.
Cookie crumbs, if you will.
Yeah. Now, teasers, as we like to call them.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Any more questions? And thank you to everyone who's also provided feedback on the poll. This is very helpful for our team to better understand kind of the pulse of the community. Lawrence, I see your hand is raised, and so I will give you the mic. Maybe that was an accidental raise.
No, in fact, Lawrence had a question in the chat, and I said I'd get back to it, and then I didn't. Is this a good forum to ask? Let's see, where'd it go? I left it. Where'd it go? Yeah, is this a good forum to ask about extracting Dataverse data-only fields for an SSRS report? Okay, can you come off mute and either elaborate in the chat? So you're doing basically a report builder report, and you want to do Dataverse data only? I guess I'm confused by the question. So let's see. Data only returns. No. Okay. Lawrence, let me reach out. I'll reach out to you separately. We can set up a call and kind of work through this and see what you're running into.
All right, question in the chat, definition of hyperautomation. Thanks, Doug, for answering that. So it's really interesting concept of, sorry, go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's one of those terms that personally I'm not super fond of. It's kind of like a buzzword. What does it mean? That's why I pulled a Gartner definition of it. From a power platform standpoint, when we think about quote unquote hyper automation, we're mainly thinking about Power Automate, obviously, cloud flows, the API based automation that many of us are surely familiar with in terms of Power Automate. Cloud flows is a part of it. But really what we start thinking about are the additional components that aren't as widely known. Those would be desktop flows or robotic process automation, which is a means to automate processes where we have insufficient or non-existent APIs. How do we automate now if we don't have an API available? And that's where we get into RPA and desktop automation. And then also a related discipline around how do we analyze our processes? How do we assess, how well those processes are performing and where there might be opportunities for automation? Where would we get the most bang for our buck, or where would we get the best return on investment from our effort to, transform a component or holistically transform a process? And so that would get into, from a Microsoft technology standpoint, that would get into what we call process mining and task mining in terms of analyzing processes, identifying bottlenecks and opportunities for improvement. On that subject, we have an upcoming tech series session, which somebody may have just dropped. Yeah, Deb just included the upcoming schedule. That first one coming up on Thursday is Advancing Hyperautomation with Power Automate RPA. This session will be focused on, hyperautomation in terms of everything I just mentioned holistically, but really mainly focused on desktop flows and robotic process automation. So I think that'll be a really interesting tech series session in that it's a component that many of us, myself included, that spend a lot of time working with Power Platform just aren't that familiar with. So would definitely encourage you, if you're curious about hyperautomation in general, and certainly if you're interested in robotic process automation, make sure to register for Thursday's tech series session. Thank you, Deb.
Hey, Doug, real quick, I know we're kind of running out of time, but I can give a quick example from one of the agencies that I work with, not so much on the RPA side, but they've taken a process where this particular agency has like facilities all across the state that get individual telephone bills. And by statute, some of the fees in the telephone bills, they don't have to pay because they're exempt. And so this used to be a manual process of like people would scan the bills and send them to a group, and they'd have to manually go through and check all these. Well, what they've done is they've kind of automated the process and a proof of concept to be able to scan all those invoices into a PDF. And then they ingest them basically into OneDrive. And then they use AI Builder to use the invoice model to basically extract all the data into Dataverse. Then they do some Power Automate logic to determine what fees they don't have to pay. And then they wrote a Power App on front of it to allow their accounts payable folks to review and kind of authenticate the bills. And then eventually the hope is that they'll be able to integrate into their statewide accounting system to get those bills paid. So a great example of automation because it covers a lot of different parts and pieces, but again, kind of automating that entire process.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. I think invoicing, object recognition through invoicing is really one of the key use cases that we've seen kind of take off with desktop loads, especially. So thank you, Deb, for sharing the upcoming tech series. I think the one on Thursday, the 25th of January, is going to be a key one to better understanding, quote unquote, hyper automation with Power Automate RPA. Thank you.
And to Martin's question, I don't think Teddy's going to change his name to Doug. However, we do have yet one more Doug on the team that we could probably bring in. we have 3 Dougs on a team of like 18 people, so they're perfect for DUG4GOV.
We should at least put an S in there. Can we find an S for the acronym? DUGs4GOV?
DUG4GOV. I'm all for it. Okay, great session.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone, again, for your time and for joining us for our January DUG4GOV session. And stay tuned to hear and learn more about what is upcoming in the next few months. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.